from the other guides that Kunyuma is heading back to our property. And we are now rushing towards that position, so hold on to your seats. And I'm just going to warn you all now that our signal may as well temporarily drop as we are traveling through an area which is about to become very low-lying. You can see the dip we're heading into, but don't worry, we need to get onto the other side of that dip before the leopard will pop out, hopefully. Last station, go again. Last station, go ahead with your message. Copy, thanks. Okay. I've been told to just keep going, so that's what I'm doing. Oh, sorry. Little Franklin was in the wrong place there. Thankfully though, they just fly off and continue unaffected. Airfront confirm as he already crossed. Heading off there, so that could well be where the leopard's gone, but what I'm going to do is loop ahead and try and get in front of that area. I seem to be having a few radio issues with Ephraim and he doesn't appear to be copying me, which makes this a little bit tricky, but bear with me and don't go anywhere because at any moment now there could be a leopard, and he's a beautiful young male called Kunyuma, who a lot of you, the regular viewers, will know very well. Ephraim. Listen, and maybe I can hear the vehicle. Again, apologies, and just enjoy the beautiful view as we wait, but there's no point in driving around aimlessly. I need to try and establish where this leopard is before we continue. From go with your message, where are you? Well, apologies for this, folks. This is a little bit frustrating, but we mustn't let it get us down. And between Aubrey and myself, we will hopefully get an update as to where exactly he is. Again, I'm just going to try and stop and listen. Try and go with your message. Okay, copy. I'm just going to drive north on Leadwood from Gowrie, Maine. Folks, while we try and establish where this leopard is exactly, I think Brent is busy arriving at a beautiful waterhole, so why don't you join him and see what he can find there, and as soon as we work out where this leopard is, we will let you know. See you later.
Welcome back, everyone. We're sitting at Buffelshoek Dam, and for those of you who don't know, Buffelshoek is an Afrikaans word which means buffalo corner if we had to take a direct translation, and it's quite apt name. Here we often see lots of buffalo bulls, and we do see occasionally the big breeding herds come down to drink here. So we've got some of those old buffalo bulls and a hippopotamus at the dam at the moment, and it sounds like Scotty's trying to find a Kunyuma again. That's really exciting. I'm just ecstatic that he's back on Juma for a little bit. And these old boys, some of them have started moving away from the water as it gets cooler. It can get quite cold down here, and they're going to be moving up towards the crests on the hills. As the warm air rises, it'll be a little bit warmer for them during the night there. You can see there's a few of them, their big black bottoms, meandering up the road. And grey heron has just flown in to that dead knobthorn tree. Sitting in that nice evening light. Oh, and Birchall starling landing just above. Oh, there's a couple. So almost a farmyard smell that permeates around Buffelshoek Dam, with all the buffalo dung around, and very strong smell. Buffalo smell quite similar to cattle, so it's almost like a farmyard smell that we can smell while we sit here. Not unpleasant at all. Hi, Pamela! Welcome on the Sunset Safari, Pamela. Pamela would like to know, does it ever get cold enough to freeze the water holes here? Well, Pamela, luckily, especially for me, since I don't like the cold very much, it never gets that cold. We will occasionally get frost, but that's about the extent of what happens on the cold. And so we'll get around 0, but very, very seldom drop below 0 centigrade. Sorry, just heard that buffalo smashing through the bush. So it's unusual even to get there. Normally we, in the early mornings, and it's very cold for us at the moment, it's sort of between 5 and 10 degrees Celsius when we start, which is around, I think it's low 40s, high 50s is about the coldest we're getting at the moment. Oh, there's the hippo. Probably going to be getting ready to head out grazing. And earlier we were speaking about those hippo lawns, and we don't notice those short grassed lawns around this area. You don't really have those big rafts of hippo that are permanently based here. Also, the bush is a bit different here. It's a little bit more clay in the soil. The sandier soils around Arathusa Dam lead more towards that. So he probably has to walk quite a bit before he gets some good grazing. And there Andrew's got a nice reflection of a torchwood tree. And there's the tree in that sort of almost pink light at the moment. Very, very beautiful. And then you can see those big bird nests on the left-hand side of the tree. Belong to the red-billed buffalo weaver. Big communal nesters. Very, very peaceful scene at Buffelshoek at the moment. But the question to be asked is, where have all the elephants gone? So guys, great news. Sounds like Scotty's right and hot on Kunyuma's tail. So, oh, Andrew just spotted the heron as it flew off. So we're going to cross across to Scotty as the heron disappears for better fishing grounds.
Welcome back, everyone. And we've got exceptionally lucky. We've managed to find Ephraim and this beautiful young male leopard. He's obscured by a lot of bushes at the moment, and I apologize for that. But as soon as I saw him, I stopped because we were a little bit close. And he will move at some point, and when he does, he could walk straight past our vehicle. As we arrived on the scene, I heard some kudu alarm calling at him, so he failed an attempted hunt, and the kudu detected him before he could pounce on them. But what a beautiful sight this is, watching him slink through the undergrowth. We are going to continue now to follow him and see what he gets up to next. It's very thick here, so hold on, because there may be a few bumps along the way. And as I off-road, the trees that I do drive over are all going to be very soft and flexible, and will just pop back up as soon as we drive over them. Where did he go? Oh, there he goes. He keeps chopping and changing direction, which is going to make our life a little bit tricky, but it's not a problem at all. This means we have to reposition the vehicle. Oh, I don't know. That was a pleasant surprise. Look at all those thorns. And here they come again. Hello. Well, I'm not picking on you, but you were in the wrong spot there. Little thorn tree. It's another one of the very flexible trees that occur here, and it will just pop back up again. It's a difficult business being a young male leopard of this age. He is now having to move out of the territory where he grew up, and when he does that, he's going to come across a few... I'm just going to wait a moment and let the other vehicles get into position. While he does now expand his territory and move out of his mother's home, he will come across a lot of hardships, battles with other male leopards, and on top of that, he's still honing his hunting skills. Both him and his brother are certainly not. You may have just got a glimpse of him disappearing through the undergrowth there. And sadly, he is making our lives a little bit difficult by chopping and changing direction every few seconds. But we will get to see him again, hopefully. So don't go anywhere. If you would like to see him tree that we just drove over, and it's just popped straight back up again. Oh. And it will continue to do so. There are certain hard trees that we will not drive over because they're very slow growing and we don't want to break those trees, but we know which is which, thankfully. Through very thick vegetation unnecessarily, I'm going to try and go around here and rely on the other vehicles that I think are a little bit closer to him to keep an eye on him. Seen a female kudu walking off, and what we're going to do is we're just going to wait here. The kudu is just on our left, and what we'll do is wait here and see if anything else happens. Phil, what's your ND full time there?
0.
Oh, really? There goes the kudu. Beautiful big female, and even though some other kudu may have let off an alarm call earlier, she just got a big fright there. You may have seen that. She may have simply heard those calls but not known what the problem was all about, and now this leopard may be trying to find out if it can't possibly catch another kudu. I'm just going to wait here and see if the leopard is following the scent of these kudu, which it could well be. Have you still got a visual there, Orbs? Okay, copy. Is he heading in any specific direction or still up and down? Okay, well, I think we should reposition. He's not following this kudu, and he's still mobile south, which means he could well cross back out of Djuma yet again. It would be nice to spend a bit more time with him if he does in fact do that. We're going to have to squeeze through this little gap here, but thankfully there are no thorns on these trees, so I'll simply pass it back over the camera. Such a beautiful evening. The sun is just dipping below the horizon, and I hope you're all enjoying the safari as much as we are. On Twitter, and thanks for sending your question through. Nigel would like to know if there's any chance that Kunyuma or Quarantine, this leopard's brother, would let off the leopard's loud rasping call that is sometimes heard from the Djuma waterhole camera. And it is it is possible, but unlikely at their age that they would be calling. They would like to try and attract as little attention to themselves as possible in order to go unnoticed by dominant male leopards. So there's a strong chance that they won't vocalize yet until they become a little bit more experienced and before they're willing to take on another male. Well, the leopard should be here somewhere. It's apparently just in front of us. Oh, there it is. It is right in front of us. Well, you can try and see it from where we are now, but it's going to be very difficult, and as Phil zooms in, it'll become more apparent. Beautiful. Looks like he's just taken a small moment to relax, get his breath back, and groom himself. And that's typical behavior for leopards. They will stop everything that they're doing in order to make sure their beautiful coat is kept clean and free of burrs and seeds that get stuck to them. And because he does look fairly comfortable there, I am going to try and reposition to get us a slightly better view, because we don't know how long he's going to decide to lie down here. Isn't this wonderful, folks? If this is your first Wild Safari Live, welcome to you. And this is one of the stars of our show, Kunyuma, a young male leopard that we've watched quite closely over the last 7 months, and it's been fascinating to see him grow and develop. This is going to be absolutely awesome. We've got a wonderful clear view of him. And look at that tail of his twitching. I don't think it's necessarily because he's happy to see us, but I think he's just enjoying this beautiful afternoon and evening. I'm fairly certain he can tell us apart from the other game vehicles. And because we have spent so many hours with him over the last 7 months, it would be very interesting to know if he does know who we are. I think he does. Not necessarily me, though, individually, but certainly the shape of our vehicle is very unique in this area and very different to the other vehicles that drive around. You may notice the very three distinctive spots above his whisker line. Those are spots that will help to differentiate him from other leopards. He has 3 on the left and I think 3 on the right, giving him a 3-3 spot pattern. And all leopards have got slightly different shapes and rosettes on their body that help us tell them apart. That tail of his continues to twitch excitedly, and what has he detected up ahead? Their senses are just so much better than ours that it can be difficult for us to know what's going on, but they may stop and pause, focused on something that we may have no idea is even here. As the sun dips further below our western horizon, it becomes a little bit darker. Look at that, awesome. And it makes for far better hunting conditions for the leopard. much prefer to hunt at night. Not much prefer, but they have a great advantage when hunting at night, is their eyesight is incredible and their prey not quite designed for night vision. And it's now that they can really have an advantage over their prey, and wouldn't it be wonderful to see them catch something? He's slowly slinking on through the thick bush, and we're going to reposition. To decide now when to stop and enjoy a view of them. There's some mala up ahead here. Orbs, I've only seen them. Oh, sorry. Well, folks, there's a whole big herd of impala up ahead of us. And that is what he heard earlier. And just like I said, their senses are so incredible that they can hear, smell, and see things that we don't even know are around. And at this stage of the evening, it's going to be very difficult for the impala to see his approach. But something that's not boding well for him is that it's a dead still evening. It's completely calm and with no wind. It's going to be very difficult for him to approach silently without them hearing him breaking a dead, dry leaf. But let's wait and see what happens. While he sits there patiently, and I'm guessing he could be there for a while, I'd just like to ask Phil to try and pan across and give a perspective to all of you of how far away the impala are. And to be honest, the leopard's probably about 30 meters off to our side, and the impala are about 40 meters directly in front of us. So, not that far away, but still very far in terms of the leopard's final launch. He will only launch an attack from about 5 or 6 meters away. They need to be exceptionally close to their prey, because their prey is very quick and good at escaping. What can often happen at this stage of the evening is that leopards will know darkness is imminent, and rather than surging forward now, hoping to catch something, it can be more beneficial to wait for complete darkness, thus increasing their chances of stalking up closer by. And that may be what he's doing right now. His camouflage is absolutely incredible. Well, the tricky thing for us is that as darkness does begin to set in a scenario like this, we're not going to be able to shine the spotlights, because we would either blind the impala or give away the leopard's position. So we are going to be a little bit limited with what we can show you, but it's certainly worth hanging around and seeing what this leopard decides to do next. I'm hoping that he's going to decide to creep up as close as he can to them any moments. And if he does, we'll be spoilt with some incredible views of him flattening himself to the ground. The impala very slowly moving away from him. Ideally, he would prefer them to be moving towards him. But because they are moving away, he could at any moment decide to creep up and stay a little bit closer. He is still very far though. He needs to be about 5 times closer than what he is before he attacks. So there's still a lot of work to be done here. Uncommon for leopard to fall asleep in scenarios like this, and that may be exactly what he's doing there. I've seen leopards fall fast asleep in a similar situation to this. The impala walk off and the leopard wakes up an hour later. So some interesting things do happen out here, and as great hunters as they can be equally surprising in their methods or tactics employed. And as I was mentioning a bit earlier, he's still a youngster and has a lot to learn and fine-tune with regards to his hunting. So far it could be... Oh, here he goes. This is what I was hoping we would get to see. It's incredible to watch how delicately they place each paw down, trying to go undetected. And you'll notice how brilliantly his camouflage helps him to blend in to his home here at Kunyuma. I'm very happy I'm not one of those impala that he's staring very intently towards. Thanks, Orbs. So, Aubrey, I think, could be rushing off to get his guests a quick drink before it gets completely dark, and it's one of those things that happen out here on safari. You stop in the evenings to enjoy a leg stretch and a sundowner, and because he's been busy enjoying this leopard sighting. He hasn't had time for that. So I'm guessing that's where he's off to now. But we thankfully don't have to go anywhere. And you can pour yourself a drink in the comfort of your own home. But if you do that, be quick. Because I'm not sure what he's going to do next. And I'd hate for you to be in the kitchen while he pounces on an impala. Well, in a scenario like this, I can recommend everyone to put on your patient pants, because it could take a long time before anything does happen here. If it was the other herd of impala that we saw earlier on this afternoon, all those young males, or a mixture of young and old males, chasing one another around, still charged with testosterone from the rutting season, then he would stand a far greater chance of catching one. But this seems like a more stable herd with a few level-headed females in it, and they don't seem to be running around or taking any chances. And as Phil plays around with the focus here, you'll begin to see how incredibly well these animals blend into their environments. And what a treat it is that we can be here watching from a distance as he focuses on trying to get himself some dinner. He looks hungry. The few brief sightings we've had of him have allowed me enough time to see that that stomach of his needs to be filled up. And I'm hoping he gets lucky this evening. Go ahead, Ephraim. I do, Ephraim, but it's a bit tricky because he's landering some mala here, so I'm trying to stay far away, and he is now lying down. So he's still quite far from them, but I do have a visual of him. So, like I did say a little bit earlier, it's not uncommon for leopards to lie down and wait in the close proximity to their prey, waiting for more favorable conditions. Now, in this instance, more favorable conditions mean complete darkness, which will be shortly, probably in the next 10 to 15 minutes. Or they can get very lucky and the prey can simply walk right onto them, which would be first prize for him. Good evening, Pamela, on Twitter. And thanks very much for sending your question through. Pamela would like to know, how much does he weigh? And I'd say he probably weighs around 60 kilograms, maybe 70 kilograms, around 130, 140 pounds. but I've never actually weighed a leopard or seen one being weighed, so it makes it difficult for me to base my estimates on anything solid. It is believed, though, that dominant male leopards, large male leopards, can reach up to over 100 kilograms, but I think that's a rarity, especially in this area, and more often than not they weigh around 80 kilograms to 90 kilograms in this part of Africa. It will vary depending on where exactly you are, and because he's still a growing boy, he could still be on the lower end of that spectrum. I'm just going to creep forward a meter or two. I don't think it's going to have an impact on what happens here, but it's just going to allow us to have a slightly better view while we wait. So, hold on while we reposition. This has helped us at all. Time will tell. No, it hasn't helped us. But he is in there. And it's just very thick though, this angle. But he is in there. I know you may have got a glimpse of him, but he's directly, basically behind. He's. If you see that large tree that's in the center of shot now, he's just off to the left of that. Behind those little white branches, but it is very tricky to even see where he is in there. Now as the light begins to fade a little bit lower down, oh no, it's too thick, so it probably wasn't the best plan for me to move, but let me see if I can creep forward another meter or two and then we should have a gap. Sorry about this roller coaster, folks, but it was very difficult for us to actually see him. And let me just get my binoculars out again to just establish where he is. And let's just creep forward a little bit more. The impala are still unaffected by us, and so is he, so we can continue without worrying about interfering with what we're doing here. I cannot for the life of me see where he is, and isn't this funny? Where is he?
I don't know.
Let me just scan with my binoculars for a moment.
Just put this spot on him.
Well, this is testament to how well these leopards can disappear not that he's disappeared, he's just lying in the same spot where we can't see him. But he can't be far from here. I did get a glimpse of him earlier, and I know he's somewhere here. We are just going to move around a tiny bit more, because it would be wonderful to give you a few more glimpses of him before the light completely fades away. Seen him, so I'm just going to reverse him slightly. Yeah, Phil? More back? Okay. See him, or I'm fairly certain he's just somewhere very close to us. And what may well have happened here, folks, is that he may have snuck off and be sneaking even closer to these impalas. So all we can really do now is stop and wait, and we might hear the impala running off for some alarm calls, and he might catch one or he may not. But we don't want to be crashing around too much right now, and it is too dark for us to even see him with the camera if we did know where he was. The catch is, we don't want to shine the spotlights around to look for him, because that'll give away his position to these impala, and we do certainly not want to disadvantage the leopard or disadvantage the impala. We simply just want to be here and be part of what goes on, not be part of what goes on, be a spectator to what goes on. And isn't it awesome? I'm actually pleasantly surprised and pleasantly happy by the thought that even though we knew where this leopard was just moments ago, he has slunk off and disappeared. You can hear quite a few different birds calling. A pearl-spotted owlet let off a few initial of its call earlier. There's some drongos. That was a pearl-spotted owlet that we just heard. Oh, the impala. The impala are alarming. I just heard one very gentle grunt, so maybe they've caught his wind. And I'm going to ask Phil to pan across there so that the camera picks up the audio. And these impala know that the leopard is here now. He's obviously crept up to them. They're not alarming very intensely. Now they are. But there's still a very strong chance he could get one. At this stage of the evening, they'll battle to see him, and maybe they've just smelt him. Because the impala are so light-footed, we probably wouldn't even be able to hear them running off. I'm just going to give it a few moments or two. I can still hear the impala, and Phil just asked me to drop back a meter. Do that quickly. Oh. What have you got there, Phil? Have you got the leopard or the impala. It is so dark though, folks. It's so difficult for you to see anything, sadly. And again, I don't want to shine a spotlight and blind the impala temporarily. That's all the leopard may need to take a moment to pounce on them, but I can still see them there. So those alarm calls could have simply been the fact that they smelt the scent of him rather, but they haven't run off. They are still somewhere in that darkness. Look at those beautiful colors on the horizon. Anyway, while we wait here in the darkness for something to happen, why don't you head back to Brent, see what he gets up to, what he's been up to, and if Kunyuma does get lucky or anything does unfold here and we can shine the spotlight, then we will certainly call you back. Otherwise, we may just continue on and leave the leopard and the impala to their own devices. If we can't see anything, what's the point in being here? So either way, let's give me a few moments here and over to Brent. We'll catch up a little bit later.
Money shot. Welcome back, folks. It's so good to be back with you. Andrew and I are sitting up on quarantine, and such a spectacular vista behind us. I'm looking at you, so I can't see it, but I have been sneaking a couple of peeks. But it's been quite an exciting day so far. I mean, we've had a fantastic day with the wild dogs this morning. Unfortunately, we couldn't find them this afternoon. And Kunyuma coming back in right in the corner of Juma, but still really nice to have him back. Unfortunately, at the moment, the Wendell that I'm sitting on at the moment is having a few technical difficulties in the engine, so I'm going to try and have a look at that after drive. But we thought we'd take the opportunity on the way home, because we've been driving home really slowly, to take a few questions or whatnot and sit and just enjoy this magnificent African vista. And you can see all that dust and whatnot in the air that I was talking about earlier, how the sun just reflects so beautifully through that. And we've got, I must guess, how many different shades of color? How many do you think? I'm going to see. How many different shades of red and orange can you guys see? I'm going to try count, see how many you can see. And you can send your answers to questions at wildearth.tv, or use the hashtag Safari Live if you're on Twitter. Oh, hang on, I'm just going to find my radio. So guys, I'm going to cover a few questions I wasn't able to get to this morning while we were herring and careering after those wild dogs. So the first one's from Lynn in Michigan. Hi Lynn, welcome on the Sunset Safari. Lynn would like to know that scent I spoke about, that sort of mixture between a moldy cupboard and a wet Labrador or wet dog. This is how I best describe the smell of an African wild dog. Is that from a scent gland, or Lynn, they don't have any really prominent scent glands that be able to smell. I just think it is their smell. They do spend a lot of time when they have the opportunity. We had a look today. They do like to lie in the water, cool off, and they're not that big on grooming. You won't see a lot of grooming with dogs. There will be a little bit of grooming, but not like a lion that constantly grooms or a leopard that constantly grooms. So they're just a little bit less fastidious when it comes to cleanliness. But we did... Oh, another question coming. Hi, Deborah from Canada. Deb. Deb's asking, I said mention that wild dogs are the second most endangered canid, so canid refers to the dog family in Africa. And she'd like to know what the first most endangered is, and that is the simian fox or Ethiopian wolf that only occurs in a very few mountain massives in the Ethiopian highlands. And a very, very interesting species, and one I have not seen yet, but is one of the top on my bucket list to go see. Hopefully try get to Ethiopia sometime this year. And they are incredible. They actually hunt mostly rats, giant voles and things in the moorlands at very high altitude in Ethiopia. And there's, I think, less than 1,500 of them left in the wild, and with very disjointed populations. And a lot of that is from misinformation, people not knowing that they don't actually hunt livestock, and that they almost solely specialize on rodents, and so they were exterminated. Also, they are very, very specific requirements, those alpine moorlands, and a lot of that has been changed by agriculture and overgrazing by herdsmen and that. So there's very few places that they are able to survive and breed with a viable population. The biggest of those is the Bale Mountain National Park in Ethiopia. So very interesting animal and very high on my bucket list. So we've got some answers for the colors. We're going to go have a look at that. And it's changed already in this couple of seconds that I've turned my head. So Julian Milwaukee says 10. Wait for a few more. MJ says 9 shades of orange. And Sally, I like Sally's answer. Sally says infinite colors in the sky. Yeah, it is incredible. You've got these dark blues and almost into sort of black, but not quite black. There's still a little bit of light in there. And then those different oranges. And I said I couldn't even begin to describe all the different colors. But I think in terms of the oranges, I think there's at least 10 different oranges. And then as we go higher, you've got that sort of fading yellow, sort of very pale yellow, almost lemony color as you go up to the base of where the light is reaching, and then you get into that sort of deep blue sky. You don't really at this time of the year or this time of the day see that truly black sky. It's almost a deep blue sky. With black, it's almost like an absence of anything, an absence of color. And when I look up at the stars, I see so much depth. So I don't know, I never really described the sky as black, but rather it's sort of deep, infinite blue, very dark blue. But it is an amazing place to be able to sit, and I'm really, really enthralled to be able to share my love and my passion for everything in the bush with you guys. It is an absolute privilege to be able to share what we do with you, and we really do appreciate all the questions and stuff that you guys send through to us. It is very, very special. So what I was hoping is we might hear some animals while we're here, but it's very, very still and quiet. So we're going to cross back to Scotty, see what's happening where he is, and we'll be back with you a little bit later, probably sitting watching the sky for a bit longer this evening.
Welcome back, everyone. And nothing's changed here. We haven't moved a muscle. We've just been listening very, very intently, and we can hear that these impala are still here. We can hear their hooves slowly rustling in the dry leaves and the dry grass. And I think that this leopard is trying to creep up. Every time he hears them scuffle about, he'll use that moment of ambient noise to take one little step closer forward, and one paw at a time he'll be inching closer towards these impala, unless of course he's headed off, but I highly doubt that. So all we can really do now is sit and wait and listen. What we are going to be hoping for, if you're rooting for the leopard, is to hear a frenzy of intense alarm calls coming from the impala. It's a nasal pff, pff that they make, and if we hear a high intensity of
of alarm calls for a long period of time, that'll mean that he's caught one, and then we'll drive in and see. If it's a short-lived alarm call in the Impala bombshell, well, then that means he probably hasn't caught one and he'll be frustratedly walking off. Either way, though, why don't we just stop and listen for a while, and Phil's going to pan around, and hopefully we'll hear the Impala alarm or the footsteps of the leopard as he rushes towards them, or maybe some hyena calling in the distance, who knows. A few moments ago we heard a hippo crying out, which is my rendition of their call. So that's another sound we could hear again. And speaking of hippo, aren't you also lucky to have seen some hippo courting at Arethusa Dam? That doesn't happen very often. I've only seen that a handful of times in my whole guiding career. We heard from the Impala earlier could well have simply been from them picking up the scent of this leopard, but it wasn't enough to me to confirm that they'd actually seen him, and the fact that they continue to stand around in that same area means it was just a bit of a false alarm, you could say. They will be on high alert though after that, but I don't think they are for certain that he's here. Well, good evening, Donna, and thanks very much for sending your question through on this special day of yours that you're celebrating. And Donna loves the animals that we saw a little bit earlier on Drive, the giraffe, and we had a beautiful sighting of them. And while we wait here and listen, it's a perfect time for me to answer Donna's question. Donna would like to know what colour is the tongue of a giraffe, and it's a bluish grey colour. As far as I've seen, we only kind of get brief glimpses of their long tongues as they quickly wrap around leaves that they're plucking off the branches of the trees that they feed on. But it's a bluish grey colour, and I'm very happy to hear that you enjoyed our sighting with them this afternoon. I certainly did as well. It's not often we get to see giraffe chewing on bones, and when we do, it's seldom three at a time in perfect golden afternoon sunlight. I can still hear the Impala rustling around. They're in the direction that the camera is pointing now, and if you listen very carefully, you too may even pick up the faint rustle of their hooves. Good evening, Kathy, and welcome on board with us. After all the wild dog excitement we've had over the last few days, Kathy's interested to know what would the reaction of a wild dog be to us on foot if we were on a walking safari. And my experiences and encounters with wild dog have often been short-lived. They often run off after letting off a bark-like sound that they cry out when they are kind of scared or agitated often when there's other bigger predators involved, or when they get a fright. They let off a very dog-like bark, you could say. It's not their common call. Their whooping call is a very strange wooing howl, which they'll communicate with one another with. But thankfully they are not aggressive to us as humans, and I don't think that a human has ever been killed by a wild dog in the wild. It may have happened that people may have been injured with wild dogs in captivity, but that's a completely different scenario to what we're experiencing out here. These animals are all free and roam through the wonderful Greater Kruger National Park, an incredible nature reserve that is haven to the large population of South Africa's wild animals. You may all be wondering, what's taking this leopard so long? Why has nothing happened? And it's important to realize that as stealthy as leopards may be, their prey have adapted and evolved over hundreds and thousands of years to avoid being eaten. And it's the prey that are better and are winning this competition, and that makes sense. And 80 or 90% of the time the prey escape, and only 10 or 20% of the time do the predators succeed. And if that wasn't the case, well then naturally the predators would do so well that their numbers would soon overwhelm their food. That would be too easy to catch, and that would mean there'd be too many predators with not enough food, and then all the predators would die. So it makes more sense for the prey to be better equipped at escaping their predators than for the predators to be able to catch their prey. And it may take this leopard hours this evening, slowly, inch by inch, creeping up to these impala. If the wind was blowing, it would help the leopard, because that way it would muffle its approach and it would be able to creep up a little bit faster. But on a dead still evening like this, it's going to be a very slow and stealthy approach required by the leopard. Got another question through about wild dogs, and this is from Crystal. Thanks, Crystal, and good to have you with us. Crystal would like to know, do we ever intervene with the rare and endangered wild dogs and give them rabies vaccinations? And that's a great question, Crystal. Crystal also mentioned we typically don't interfere with any of the animals out here because Mother Nature must take its course. But with rare and endangered animals that could come up from diseases that are abnormal and not natural, like rabies, which they can get from domestic dogs, do we help out? And yes, people will dart and vaccinate wild dogs, as far as I'm aware, to help prevent them getting rabies. But I think because the vaccination needs to be done time in and time again, it makes it difficult and doesn't necessarily work too well. Now, I stand to be corrected on that, but basically, if there is requirement for human intervention to help wild dog, it will happen because they are such rare and endangered animals. Well, folks, it's been a wonderful afternoon, and it's been so good to have you on the back with me. It's been really non-stop action, and I hope you've enjoyed every second of it. I certainly have. And I must say a big thanks to Phil on camera, and to Nikki and Eugene in Final Control, and also thanks to Brent and Andrew for their hard work this afternoon. Pity they didn't have any luck on their wild dog search, but maybe tomorrow we'll get lucky. Anyway, from myself, Scott, thanks for joining, and we're going to cross over to Brent for him to say goodbye, and let's just wish Kunyuma some happy hunting. We're going to move out and leave him to do his business. See you in the morning.
Welcome back, everyone. Andrew and I are still sitting here. As you can see, the colours have changed completely. It reminds me almost of a Turner painting, that sort of dark, on fire, late afternoon light. But welcome back for the last couple of minutes of the Sunset Safari. Been a really fantastic day. So happy Scotty managed to get some good views of Kunyuma, and great to hear that he's good and healthy. As a lot of people know, he is my favourite leopard, so there's a little jealousy, not too much. Very happy for Scott. And we had such a fantastic morning with the wild dogs. I can't really complain about anything. Such an amazing sighting, and being able to stay with them for as long as we did, even though we got stuck twice, and then 3 times after we were off air. But that's what happens when you're following dogs, and we managed to get out of all those situations. So thanks very much, everyone, for joining us on both the Sunrise and Sunset Safaris today. And to the new viewers, welcome. To our regulars, always great to have you with us, and hope to see you bright and early for the Sunrise Safari in the morning. Have a wonderful evening, guys. Cheers.